In this video, we're very quickly going to go back to some of the letters I showed you in the first video for this week, and we're going to play a sort of little game here. Can you spot your ancient letters? So some of these are letters that I gave you as sort of examples of the length of different letters, but each one of them is contained within the assignments for this week. So you may have seen one of these letters, that is to say, the translation that I have given you might be from one of these actual documents here. And what I've done is just pulled out some quotes from each one that I find particularly interesting for one reason or another. So this first one is the letter fromHilarion. And what's really interesting about this one is Hilarion's very, very flippant reference to child exposure in the ancient world, where he tells his wife, if by chance you bear a child, if it's a boy, let it be, that is, let it live. If it's a girl, cast it out. And the casting out there refers to the exposure of children, just leaving them out in garbage heaps or leaving them out wherever to be picked up by other people and taken in as a slave, or to be left simply to die. And here we also see, of course, the preference for male children in the ancient world, very, very tragically. The next one is Appion's letter to Epimachus, and Appion is a father writing to his son, and he says, "Now I ask you, my lord and my father, write me a letter, telling me first of your welfare, secondly of my brothers and sisters, and enabling me thirdly to make obeisance before your handwriting, because you educated me so well." If you remember back to that first video, we sort of did a compare and contrast, or I called attention to the different handwritings of this letter and this letter. And it really appears to me, given this statement that Appion's father has educated him well, that Appion probably hand wrote this letter, and we see Appion's good education from his father Epimachus in the handwriting itself, that we have this elegant handwriting here. And Appion mentions that he wants to make obeisance to his father's handwriting. He wants to see his father's handwriting and be able to worship it. Here he's probably saying, it's a way for him to rhetorically say, I really miss you, and I want to see your handwriting because it will remind me of you. This letter was from Sarapion to Heraclides in the city of Alexandria. So it's sent to Alexandria, Egypt, where in this time period, around the year 41 CE, we have some Jewish revolts going on. And so we see this referenced in the letter itself, where Sarapion says, like everybody else, beware you too of the Jews. So look out for these revolts and riots that are happening amongst Jews, these pogroms that are happening amongst Jews in this time period in the city to which Sarapion is writing. And then in Harpercreation's letter to Sabinus, he writes, Theophilus, the Jew, has come saying. So notable here is the name Theophilus, which literally means God lover, and another reference to a Judean person. And in this case, what's really interesting is, of course, the author of Luke writes to an individual named Theophilus. Theophilus was a fairly common Jewish name in the ancient world, and actually a pretty common Greek name as well. The god does not have to be the Jewish or the Christian god in Theophilus. But nonetheless, it's interesting that we have Theophilus the Jew here, and we have another Theophilus mentioned in the New Testament in the beginning of Luke. And then I like this ending here from Lucius. Don't talk nonsense about gathering your olives. Goodbye. And lastly, we have a sort of real life prodigal son here in Longus writing to his mother. He says, I was ashamed to come to the city because I go about in filth. I wrote to you that I'm naked. I beg you, mother, be reconciled to me. Well, I know what I have brought upon myself. I have received a fitting lesson. I know that I have sinned. So very interestingly, we have a son begging to be reconciled with his mother. It seems like he's written to her on several occasions and has not been reconciled yet, or actually hasn't heard word from her yet, but that he says he sins and he's sort of repenting of his ways, a real life version of the parable of the prodigal son. Again, a sort of echo of the Gospel of Luke, or something that can sort of shed light culturally on the parable of the prodigal son from the Gospel of Luke. So you probably already, if you had one of these, you probably noted some of these things or found them interesting as I did.